Thanks everyone for coming. This is the information session for the Chattanooga 2026 competition, sponsored by the Urban Guild and the CNE group from Chattanooga. And we have Justin Trisson here from CNE, who will do most of the talking because he really knows the site and knows the program and knows the information we're going to ask him. And then we're also going to go over the timing, which we didn't really have organized when we last presented this to the guild members. So now we have that all organized. And essentially, just an outline of that. We're doing the information session now, and so the competition will be open now to all registrants. And then there'll be a deadline and a review process, and then we're going to announce the winners, and then we'll have a ceremony during our guild summit in September and in November 6th through the 8th or 5th through the 8th in Claremont. So welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Justin, and Megan might have some information to share too. So Justin, if you could go ahead and share your PowerPoint presentation and walk us through the site and your program expectations, and then we can answer questions.
All right, let's see if I can get all this. Can y'all see the aerial here?
Yes.
Excellent. So again, thank you guys. CNE is a nonprofit that's been around for 40 years, and we work in the affordable housing area. About 20 something years ago, we were able to pick up the site you see on the screen. It is in just outside the CBD in the downtown area of Chattanooga. And it is a site that is mostly vacant except three old Victorian houses that are on the site. And at the time, they were converted into a series of LIHTC individual units carved up inside that. And I believe we have 20 units, and I'll get to the breakdown of that into a moment. That LIHTC period is burning off, and we are now in the position to figure out what we want to do with the site. And so this is a really wonderful opportunity. Also, in the last couple of years, there's been a tremendous amount of development in this particular area. And so it's going through a transition, but it's also a area that has a stock of really older, beautiful homes. And so we're trying to thread that needle of respecting the beautiful homes that are there, as well as understanding the sheer density of what is getting built in that area. So the project is technically 4 lots in this square. It's and here are the tax ID numbers. They're currently 3 multifamily homes with 10 parking spots designated just to the south of those 3 homes. The parking in the southern corner is not part of the paid parking lot. It looks like that from all of the Google Maps and all that, but it's actually part of our property that we just simply don't manage, and so people tend to park there. Um, you can see just to the southeast, and we've got some additional pictures I'll show later, is a large multi-story apartment building, a dormitory that's for the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. To the south is a parking field. To the west are 2 older buildings. And then up from that is a very large apartment building that's student housing. And across the street are some beautiful older homes as well. For a program, what we're hoping to do is we'd like to keep the 3 existing buildings, but we're open to both reconfiguring those buildings, excuse me, and adding to the rear of those buildings. There are 10 existing parking lots. We need to retain 10 spots on the site, but they can be anywhere on the sites. Would we like to get more parking spots? Sure, but we do not feel we need any more parking spots because of the neighborhood that it is in. We are hoping to get to a total of 35 units on the site. A mix of studio, 1 bedroom, and 2 bedrooms are fine. And a big change is that we are now open to renting to students. Previously, that was something we weren't necessarily interested in, but I think because of both the affordability of the area, the price structure, and the rapid growth of the area, that we would be open to renting to students as well as trying to get as much affordability into the project as possible. Just to the south in yellow is there is an existing open right of way. It is relatively unimproved. There is a there is a small paved, about 8 foot wide right of way that goes up that slope, but the reality is that it has not been maintained for many generations and is not drivable at the moment. We have to keep this right of way and we have to keep it open. The reason for that is that to the north of us are two other properties we do not own, and they refuse to have that right of way closed for their access. That being said, we can use that right of way as access for our project as well. And I would encourage y'all to try and utilize it as an access point for a driveway to come into the project.
Great.
Next. Yeah, there we go. Uh, so looking from that north corner, and you can kind of see in the little map on the bottom corner of where we're looking at, these are the three Victorian homes that were built in the 1890s. They have a lot of history for the area. They have a lot of nostalgia, both for us and for our largest funder, who happens to have the Lyndhurst Mansion on the other side of the street. And so for that reason, we're hoping to keep these buildings, not to mention they're just lovely buildings. They are in good shape. We have had to do some work a little bit on the retaining walls, but other than that, um, they're pretty good. There are 20 LIHTC units in them. Again, that burns off in the March of 2027. Uh, we're evaluating re-upping for LIHTC, but we're leaning towards not doing that and part of doing a larger project. And so, as part of that, we would like to still have in the total completion of units on the site, we'd like to have somewhere around 20 units to remain affordable housing in one shape or form. Right now, there's a total of 13 studios, five one bedrooms, and two bedrooms in these units. We are open to a total reconfigure on the interior of these units, as well as I said, in addition to the rear that could even be attached to the building. But we really want to keep the presence of these Victorian houses on the street itself. Most of the classic homes on this block have been replaced over times, exceptions being the Lyndhurst mansion across the street and several older houses. From the eastern way looking up, this is where you can really start to see the topography of the site. The site has a substantial slope with a 50 feet of grade change over about 230 feet. On the eastern portion where the houses are, you can see how it was terraced out with the retaining walls. But the western portion has not been terraced at all. It hasn't been dealt with. It is predominantly flat on the bottom for the parking, and then it goes up in small little naturally occurring terraces. You can see where the red line kind of shows the bounds of the property. This yellow box kind of gives you a showing of what exists currently for that right of way and how it kind of just cuts right through where this parking is happening. Again, we have no commitment to the parking group that's there. We have no commitment to keeping the parking there. We are happy with, excuse me, we're happy with that developing out. You can also see the three different levels of retaining walls that we have on this property. And so something to keep in mind is those retaining walls and how to either incorporate them or if we're going to replace them, think through that process. Because of the steepness of this site, clearly retaining walls get to be pretty expensive, but 4 foot retaining walls tend to heat, especially in Chattanooga, meet a much lower requirement and therefore are far more affordable to do a series of 4 foot or below retaining walls as opposed to doing one large 25 or 30 foot wall. So here's a bit of a zoom in of the site, as well as on the right, you can see the slope parameters. This is actually the on the plat document that was done in the late 1920s when they went to put in a sewer line into the street. This is the sewer map for that, and that can kind of give you an understanding of just how steep the slope is on that area. So, from physical notes point of view, as I said, there's a 50-foot change over about 230 feet. It is not in a floodplain. It is not heavily wooded. The existing structures are those single family detached homes, which we've converted to multifamily. And there's an alley that is open, must remain open, but can be used for access anywhere along the way that it butts our property. In terms of utilities, you can see the sewer has an 8-inch line from the 1920s that is up here along the northern edge of the street that has access. And we have three separate tap lines that come in for the existing homes because we own all the property. There's an ability to tap into those as we need to, because we'll be keeping this as one large multifamily project. Same thing, water, yes, is actually in the sidewalk itself, which makes it much easier to tap into. Um, we don't know the size of the sidewalk, I'm sorry, of the water line in the sidewalk that's right here along the northern part. That was done a significant time before we took ownership, and in fact, before we had any drawings. So we have lines that we know go into the homes, but I don't know what the line size is in the actual right of way itself. As for stormwater, there is no stormwater on the actual site. All the stormwater currently runs down and then out either up or down the ramp here along this edge and out to a water system on the south side. Um, with we're working on with that group, we have tried to identify if there was an opportunity to tap into a system, and we are not sure if there's really an opportunity as much as what we're going to have to do is do some addition, we're going to have to do stay on volume for the actual project. What will likely happen is for stay on volume is we'll have to do 1 inch for the entire area that becomes impervious due to a new development. But because of our older buildings, we should be able to grandfather those into the site. So it is currently part of the form-based code. The current zone is URM3. So the U is the urban context. The RM is the zoning type, which in this case is residential multifamily. And the 3 is the maximum number of stories. I do want to bring to all y'all's attention that around us are a significant number of rezonings that have occurred to the CX zone. So UCX4 and UCX6 are other form-based zones. They're commercial zones that allow for higher density and different types of uses. They also have a reduction in the parking requirement and a reduction in a variety of other code requirements, as well as being able to go to the UCX4 can go to 4 stories and the UCX6 can go to 6 stories. The lot itself, the whole big site itself is about 44,400 square feet. It's about 200 feet by 222 feet. I wanted to give you guys a side-by-side comparison of the zones because I would encourage you guys to look at potentially rezoning it. We would be happy to do so to the UCX zone if it works for the project you have in mind. So I pulled some of that in. Again, we will send, I believe the Urban Guild will send out the presentation afterwards. So there's a link to the community code right where that is, as well as here's in kind of a cut of some of the major requirements. This isn't all the requirements, but most of the requirements that I believe you guys would really want to know. So for instance, for the lot size, there's no lot size for UCX, but there is a max building coverage of 80% for the entire site. On the other side, with the lot parameters for our current zone, there are a number of lot size requirements if we're going to cut this into smaller lots, which wouldn't likely not be an issue. I imagine that most of y'all are going to look at re-subdividing this to one big lot. It just makes everything easier, but we are open to subdivision if that's something that kind of works. Building placement, one of the main benefits of going to UCX is going to be the primary street building setback moves to 0 with a max of 15 feet, whereas their current zone has a 10-foot minimum front yard setback and a 20-foot maximum front yard setback. They also have a variety of additional requirements. So, for instance, a rear along the alley, there is a 5-foot minimum setback for either of them. There isn't a protected zone, so you don't have to worry about the protected zones that are around the site. Access to the site. Um, the Land Development Office has essentially worked with us and said that we are able to keep the current curb cuts we have, or we're welcome to move those curb cuts, but we are limited to likely only one along the northern side of the street, and then one potentially two on on the eastern side of the street. And so we are expecting that we'll have access, you all will want to keep access, one access point from each street. You don't have to. We can go down to zero, but don't expect to get more than one curb cut is my expectation. Again, if you use the alley and you want to do an alley cut in and not have a curb cut from the street, we're absolutely fine with that. The parking setbacks is in the form-based code, which sets the how close a parking spot can be from the street. They're very similar, so there's not much of a change there. But again, I wanted to include that for y'all. Mass and height, you can see there's a differential in what size of the buildings can be. So one of the things you'll notice is that there is a minimum height of 2 stories for the UCX 4 and 6. And with that, it is not a minimum of every building has to be 2 stories. It is you have to have at least a number of buildings that are 2 stories. And so when thinking through that, it's going to be a massing concern as to making sure we are utilizing that. Previously, we've had a drawing that was done that had a smaller development on it. One of the reasons we are looking to go to a substantially larger development is the cost for doing the environmental, well, not the environmental, I apologize, the environmental is done. The cost to do the engineering work on the site for the land work, as well as the cost for labor and materials now in our areas have just made it too expensive to do small cottages. So we are looking for a larger series of massed buildings or even one large building depending on the design. Here's another rubric of some of the setbacks. And again, y'all will all have a copy and access to all those so you can go through those. Um, when you're actually on the site looking towards the back of those, you can see the substantial slope up to those sites and where they are located. There's currently a chain link fence that acts as a separator. By all means, take it down. We are we are happy to see that go. And then back to the site. So now that you've kind of had a run through of the site that we're looking at, you can see one of the things I think that wasn't conveyed last time is the way the street orientation works is pretty odd. You can see that here, the street on the western side, which is Houston Street. Houston Street has 2 directions. It's not one way, but there is an entrance here on the street that goes up towards the top of the hill. This is a one-way going up to that. So you actually have to cross over, and that's why you can see there's breaking into striping here. You have to cross over and come across and come up there, and then it is a one-way street heading up Fifth to the top of the knoll. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. It does create a challenge at times, so everyone should be aware of that as we go in. And then there is no curb cut at the moment for where that right of way of alley comes down. It makes sense in our mind to add that curb cut and move this curb cut, but again, we are open to any design ideas in that. Um, I also want to kind of give you guys just a brief understanding of what's around us. So east of the site, these are the new dormitories that have been built on the site next to us. And across the street is the McKenzie Arena, which is a multi-story large basketball arena. Across the street from us, though, on Fifth Street, where I said we still have some of those, here you can see some of those older, beautiful buildings, including the Lyndhurst Mansion, and a new development that does a decent job of trying to bring in some of the same materials. Then to the west of the site, this is one of the older buildings that's just to the west of our site. It is a Buttinger site. And then two up from that, this is the new development that has happened on Lindsay Street. Lindsay Street is the next street over to the west of ours. They do have some access to that right-of-way alley, and they are also asking to keep that open for their uses, even though they don't have any use for it at the moment. But this gives you a size of the scale of what's going up in the area of this neighborhood. And that is a quick run through. So again, from our program point of view, let me go back up to the top. So from our program point of view, we're really hoping if we can try and get 35 units across this site, including those 35 units, including those old Victorian houses. Our thought is there should be an opportunity for significantly more than that, but we wanted to let you guys figure out what would work best on the site to get there. We don't want to do three bedrooms. We'd like to stay in the studio, one bedroom, two bedroom. We have found with the market for students, one bedroom and studios work best. And then for us, in terms of who we are renting to for the affordability, generally one bedrooms and two bedrooms work fine. Studios can be a stretch in the affordability range for us. And that's kind of an overview of the whole project.
Great. Thank you, Justin. I had a couple questions, but I'd also want everyone else to be able to ask questions. So the let me first just ask the 35 units,
Mhm.
is that over and above the 20 that are existing?
That would include the 20 that are existing. I think that at least 15 more units on the site is got
Okay.
to be the bare minimum for
Yeah.
what's going in there.
Okay.
We are interested in going above and beyond that.
Okay, great.
Hey,
Anybody else?
hey, Justin, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is there any opportunity to get the southbound ramp that comes up to Fifth Street? Is there any opportunity to get that southbound ramp opened?
You're talking about the one on this side.
Yeah,
Can you see where my arrow is going?
yeah.
Unfortunately, no. We have talked to the city multiple times about that, and we have never been given the same answer twice, but every answer has been followed up with no.
Okay. Well, then I appreciate that very candid answer, but just to from a hypothetical standpoint, are you aware of any uh, property ownership, right of way limitation, or physical geometry limitation to why that could not be opened?
The property ownership, the only reason that there is a small issue is that so here's that ramp going down at the north end, just at the edge of where this is, there is development that has put all their garage doors here. And so one of the things is getting these cars in and out tend to do 3-point turns here. And so it
Okay.
creates a problem at that point. But that is a point in time problem, right? That isn't a long-term problem. And I think to your point, if somebody wants to propose opening that to benefit the project, I'd be more than happy to take it to the city. I just want to say with a caveat of we've been down this road before. I think there may be an argument to thread that needle. We have yet to find it.
Understood. Understood.
Justin, a question about the URM3
Hmm.
qualification there. Is there a maximum number of units if we call the site a single site?
No.
Okay.
So the key thing to keep in mind is that there is in the form-based code for URM3 and UCX4, there is not a density count in it. It is you have to meet the requirements of all the setbacks on the site. That is really where it comes from.
Okay. That makes sense. And how are they measuring height? I see it's number of stories, but it's also a dimension. Is that
Yes.
from average level around the house to the eave or to the maximum ridge or to the midpoint of the ridge? How's that measured?
So this is an interesting thing because form-based code and the Euclidean zoning they have two different forms of measurement. And so one of the things that we have had this conversation before has been that they essentially measure each building from a midpoint going up. So essentially, they measure the average of the grade across the building and then go from there up a number of feet. Now, the nice
Okay.
thing about form-based code is that for the height, there isn't. Let me pull that up. Setback heighting. You can see here are where these calculations come from: 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet. So that is where they've at least delineated those, whereas in the Euclidean zoning, they hadn't designated this feet. So a lot of times we spent arguing about how tall is a four-story building, how tall is a three-story building. So
Yeah.
the only negative side of that is you have a clear maximum. So that does mean in many cases that to get to your story count, you will have to have, if you're going to do a CX6, you've got a six-story building. It may be six stories in the front, but five stories in the back because of the slope of the land.
Okay. Okay, good. And when you say average of the starting point, is that across the front or is it just average all the way around the whole
It is
building?
average to the grade.
It is
So what they
all the way
do,
around.
yeah. So like if it's the front of the building and it's all at a light grade, then that's not much. But then when you come down the side of it where the significant topographic changes, that's where it'll probably hit you the most.
Okay, go back. The midpoint of the front of the building or the midpoint of the whole perimeter?
It is going to be the midpoint of each side.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
so one side is taller than the other. Which one do you work with?
So our experience has been with the land development office has been that they have worked with us in a positive manner on the side that usually has the most frontage facing the street. That has been the standard that we've expected from them, but land development office is going to do what they want.
How
I
about if
see a
we
lot of
how about
with
if we
this.
propose it based on this is what the building code says, and you can decide that your land development bullshit is going to be contrary to the building code. Building code
If
says
I could
average of
afford
the front.
to say that without causing offense for my organization, I'd say it every day of the week.
Okay, well you can call me in. I'll do it.
It seems as though this site, the way it's sloping, the I guess southeast corner is going to be the low spot, and that's away from the street, the primary
Mhm.
street. Um, so if that affects us, then we'd have to design to it. But you're saying they have been favorable in your interpretation to focus on the primary street frontage.
I will also, and since this question is coming up, I will also say this. There is an ability to go in front of the form-based code board and ask for one additional story to be added, and we are happy to do that.
Okay.
So that gives you a little bit more leeway.
Okay. Well, and you're willing to change the zoning here too.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, we may need that just to get rid of the setback.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
That's my expectation, and that's why I wanted to put them both up for y'all, so that way my thought is that it's going to be easier to go to the UCX 4-6 and
Yeah.
might as well go to the 6 just to give yourselves the room. So
Okay.
All right. Is there, I saw the topo come up on the slides. Is there a scaled map with a topo on it that we can download?
yes, so as part of the packet, I did put up a shapefile. I've heard in the past that people have had issue with shapefile, so I'm converting that to a CAD file for you.
How about a PDF for us Luddites?
You got it. You absolutely. I will also say that the city has a GIS website that you can download a lot of this data as well from there, and I will make sure that that's listed as well.
Oh,
But
good. Thank you.
I'll put a PDF in, I'll put a CAD file in, and I'll put a shape file in.
Hey, Justin, we had provided or we developed a base map for during the Guild Summit. I don't know if that's useful, what we came up with there. I'd have to dig that up. But we could take I think my company's logo is on there and stuff. So we can clean that up and that could be useful.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah, because I think Jeff, we had the conversation about needing to convert to CAD. So I think you already went through that process, right?
Yeah, let me dig that up.
And
And
then
I'll send it, Justin, I'll send it to you so that you can maybe you're the key
If you want to
contact.
CC Megan on it, just so she's got it as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll put it into the package folder.
and do we have a timeline sheet that we could look at?
Let me stop sharing so that way you guys
Referring to the
can-
timeline of due dates and announcements.
Yes,
I can
yes.
put it in a separate form. Lucy's actually in the process of updating our website right now with those breakdowns of the due date and final selection. It's in the brief as well, but we can point that out more clearly.
Do
Yeah,
you need me to stop sharing so you can share something, or?
can we look at it now? Do we have something to share?
Sure, yeah, I can pull it up. Submission deadline is June 5th. Our committee will be reviewing starting June 5th with a review meeting on the 11th, and the final selection will be announced June 9th. I think the only thing we don't have locked in, and we'll have this worked out with you, Justin, is when in July we want to kind of announce that.
Yeah, so this is going to be the 40th year of CNE, and so we are doing a year-long big campaign. So I'm hoping to be able to have a little more fanfare with the winner and being able to include it as part of one of our major events for our 40th year celebration.
Yep. And then as Jeffrey mentioned, we'll be making a big to-do at the Guild Summit this year as well in November 5th through 8th in Claremont, Florida. You just saw those save the dates go out this week.
So this is April 9th.
Mhm.
And so that gives us
Couple months.
a couple months to do it and submit it. And the requirements for submission are there. I think that's it. Anybody else have any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, one other question, Megan and Justin, is this just a design competition, or is there any preconceived thought of development structure, ownership structure, financing structure? Is that contemplated to be a part of the discussion?
So from CNE's point of view, the intention is to get us the point where we start to so that we can try and figure out the capital stack on it. We are actively working on building up what we think we need for equity for it and what it looks like from that stage. I will also, in total transparency, we are currently working on the two largest projects that we've worked on in 40 years. And so those are my priority at the moment. And so as soon as we've got the capital stacks on those put together now and we're going into it. So once I get into construction on those two projects, we're going to return to this project with the winner and see what it looks like going forward in terms of our capital stack capacity. In terms of ownership, CNE is the owner of all property there, will remain the owner of property. We have no intention of selling the property. We hold all our property.
Okay, but okay, so this is really just a design competition at this point, right?
Yes.
Okay,
It sounds as though you're pretty busy, so performa might be useful. By the way, do you know what the rents are in this area?
I was going to say I can start putting something like that together.
We can look it up too pretty easily. But you've got special rents on these LIHTC.
We
Not
please do
anymore.
not go off of what our LIHTC rent is.
Yeah, no, we won't. We won't.
So, but I will put together a thing of what student rents are going for in the area, as well as market rate rents, and then what our limitations are based on the our capital stack is likely to include potential like home funds or something of that nature. So we'll put out what those rents would look like for at 80 and 60% and how many units would maximize that.
And impact fees, do you have
We
that?
do not have impact fees in Chattanooga.
Oh, you don't have any?
Yeah, we do
Yeah,
not.
they just have a
Wow.
$18,000 tap fee for a fire system.
Yes.
Okay. That's not cheap.
yeah, don't tell everybody that. We'll have too many developers coming to town.
I'm gonna
As
say,
long as they can run off one tap.
Yeah.
yeah, right. Okay. Good. Justin, thank you so much.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
the opportunity.
You know
Well, last question. Is Chattanooga one of the cities that passed a single stair or 4 or 6 units, no fire sprinkler?
Correct. We are, and I will have to look up the number on that, but I think it's up to 6 stories, if my memory says correctly for that. So, but I will double check for that information.
Okay, but then also the Shelby County, Memphis adopted 6 units IRC, no fire sprinklers.
We are currently at 4 units, no IRC, 4 units
Okay.
IRC, no sprinkler. We are advocating, C&E is advocating to bring that up to 6 because we build 6-plexes all the time. And so
Yeah.
that would be really helpful to move it up there. But at the moment it's 4.
You mentioned one thing about water retention, and I wanted to ask if you could talk more about that. Do we have to manage water runoff on the site? Do you have to
So, yep, the city of Chattanooga has a 1-inch stormwater on-site requirement, which
Okay.
means that you have to, for every bit of impervious surface you create, you're going to have to store 1 inch of water somewhere.
That's a 1-to-1. 1 inch of area requires 1 inch of storm
Correct.
storage. Okay.
What?
Isn't that, am I misspeaking? Let me pull that up again just to make
1 inch
sure.
tall, one cubic inch.
Yes.
1 cubic inch for every square inch of surface of impervious surface area.
Yeah, stay on volume of 1 inch. And so I will double check with our project engineer, and I will include the link to that location for where that language is.
Okay, great. Thanks, Justin. This is a lot of research you've done. Thank you, and appreciate it. And hopefully we can come up with some ideas that you can use. And hopefully these are such great ideas. It's hard for you to pick, and you can carry one of them forward with whoever designs it. I think that was a
That would be a
goal of
big,
ours.
yeah, that would be very
Yeah.
exciting. We'd really love to be able to.
I know you couldn't guarantee it because you have to get through capital stack and get things running properly
Mhm.
before you do that. But you did say that you'd love to have whoever designs it be part of the team going forward if it works out.
Absolutely. Our intention is that once we pick a winner and once we are through the current project load that we've got on and gotten some capacity, we would want to follow up with that winner, work through a capital stack program, and I mean, there's always negotiations, but hopefully bring them on to
Yeah.
help to be part of that, whether the architect or whether they are working with another architecture firm as the lead. So.
Cool. Great. Thank you. All right. If there isn't any more questions, I think we can wrap it up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Megan.
you.
See y'all later.